Good morning. 2020 Form 4562, Depreciation and Amortization. How to find property class and recovery period for your assets. So to depreciate an asset, it is important you pull publication, IRS publication 946, you'll use the rate from rate table under Appendix A, but you need to locate the Appendix A and the rate table in the publication 946. And you'll need to know the depreciation system to use, the recovery method you are going to use, the recovery period of the assets, the convention you will fall under, and then the property class to find the rates, the depreciation rates, the name of the table that you will use when it comes to the depreciation rates. So how to locate the recovery period and the class life of your assets. There is a general description on the publication 946, and on page 30 there is a description of property class, but there could be a chance where you won't find the specific asset that you place in service that you are trying to depreciate. So you'll first know the activity, your business, the type of activity that is using the assets you place in service. So that's something to take a note of. And you'll go to publication 946. There is Appendix B. You have table B1 and table B2 under Appendix B. And table B1 pretty much is a table of class life and recovery periods, but is the table B1 lists the assets and table B2 lists business activities, and both are class lives and recovery period. So that's why you need to know the business that is using the assets. So we have few options, a few cases here, and by the way, you can access the links to Form 4562, the instructions, and the links to publication 946 under free downloads, federal forms and instructions on ninasop.com. You don't need to enter your email to access it. And we have articles on depreciation in the category how to depreciate a business asset, where you can find the articles that we discuss. And we do have a video playlist, 2020 Form 4562 Depreciation and Amortization, where we have all the videos that discuss depreciation and how to complete Form 4562. So the first case is assets is listed in table B1. Business activities is listed in table B2, and the asset is listed under the activity in table B1. So the thing is, when you have an asset that you want to depreciate and it's not in that short list on page 30 of publication 946, the first thing you'll do is to go to the table B1 to see if you'll find the asset. So if you find the asset in the table B1 Appendix B, it's good to see if your business activity is listed in the table B2. But the thing is, when you find the asset, you'll know the recovery period. But sometimes, depending on the business that is using the assets, the recovery period can be different. So for the same asset, the number of years you recover the cost could be different from one activity to the other. It can happen for some assets. So that's why it's good to locate the business activity. So in case one, where you have the asset listed in table B1 and the business activity is listed and the asset is listed in table B2, you use the recovery period of table B2 as the recovery period, as the recovery period could differ from one activity to the other. So let's go take a look at those tables. So Appendix B, table of class lives and recovery period. You can read the instructions to be familiar with it. But table B1 is going to specify assets here. So let's take a look here and choose one thing for like a desk, for instance. So a desk, if you use a desk in your business and the desk is listed in table B1 and the recovery period under GDS, General Depreciation System, that's what we recommend. So, but you have the choice between ADS and DDS. So if you are using GDS, 70 years is what the recovery period is. The class life is 10. If you are using ADS, you will recover that in 10 years, but if you are using GDS, it's 7 years. The asset class is 00.11. So you have it in table B1. So depreciating a desk, the thing is you don't even have to come here for desk, for instance, because it's listed. If we go back to page 30, I believe it's listed already in 7-year period. So we are not choosing the right example here. So they list it already here. So you know it's a 7-year property class. But in case it's not listed, and or even if it's listed, but you wanted to make sure, so the appendix B is on page 97. So page 98 of publication 946 is table B1. So you locate the assets. The recovery period is 70 years. It's good you scroll down to locate your business that is using it. So we are going to assume you have a retail business. So you have an online business and you are a retailer. So when whether you manufacture or not, but they have businesses here, business activities. So we might want to read through to see where your business is located. But if we assume you sell to the users of your products and you sell retail, or you are in a professional, you provide services, the asset class is the first column. Asset class is 57.0. So let's scroll all the way down, and you have a home office that uses a desk. Asset class 57.0. Distributive, trade, and services include assets used in wholesale and retail trade. So even wholesalers are specified here in retail trade. They don't say online, they don't say store only or anything like that. So we will classify even online included. So wholesale and retail trade, and personal and professional services. So a lot is included here. Include section 1245 assets used in marketing petroleum and petroleum products. Okay. So you'll notice that they say include assets used in wholesale and retail trade, but they didn't specify desk. So desk is not specified. Is it the example we are using? The example we are using is if we find the assets. So if you find the assets listed here, let's say we found the asset listed here, like you see the name of it. Let's see if I can find an example here. You see, when they say like assets such as electricity, hard heater, and so sometimes they can really specify an asset. They can say land, for instance. And if I scroll it up a little bit to another one here, when they're talking about theme and amusement park, they say land, include all land improvements for any support. So when they specify the item, the assets next to the activity, then you use the recovery period that is in table B2 related to the activity that is using the assets. And in our case, 57.0 is 5 recovery period, but we don't see desk here, so we are going to move on. If we have seen desk here, then we will have used recovery period 5. But so that's the case 1. So if you find the assets in table B1 and you scroll down to table B2 and you find the business, your business activity that is using the asset, and the asset is listed in table B2 in the list of assets under the business activity of yours, you use the recovery period from table B2 for the depreciation system that you are using. So that will be the recovery period. So we continue to case 2. In case the asset is listed in table B1, but the business is not listed in table B2, use the class life and recovery period of table B1 to depreciate the asset. So let's, assuming that you are depreciating, what can we use here? You are in a business that is not listed. The activity that you are in is not listed in table B2. And the asset is listed. We can still use the desk assets. Okay. So there is many activities here, but let's just say you are so creative, you come up with a business activity that is not listed, and you are using a desk. For instance, where is our desk again? We can just use the desk, and you find the desk in table B1, but you didn't find the activity in table B2, or whatever the asset is. You found it in table B1, but you didn't find the business activity that is using the asset in table B2. You will use the recovery period of table B1, and in the case of the desk is 7-year recovery period. And in fact, that's in the short list on page 30. Desk is a 7-year property class as well, and property class and recovery period are the same. On let's see here, the property class and the recovery period, most of the time they are the same. So 3-year property will have 3-year recovery. 5-year property will have 5-year recovery if you are using general depreciation system. Okay, so 7-year recovery period is 7-year property class as well. So you'll use that. So that's the second scenario. So the third one is if the asset is listed in table B1, the business activity is listed in table B2, but your asset is not listed. So in that case, use the class life and recovery period of table B1. And for instance, what did I use here? Okay, we use the desk. So let's go back, and our example that we used earlier will have work. We have the desk in table B1, have a 7-year period. And let's go to business activity in table B2. And as a retailer, okay, asset class 57.0, you don't have desk specified here. They have to really say the name of the asset. It's not here. Therefore, you use the recovery period of table B1. You do not use the one of the activity. So you will recover the cost of the asset using table B1, which is 7 years. So, but the office desk is not in the list. Therefore, you will use the class life and recovery period of table B1 of the office desk, which is 7 years. So you'll depreciate it for 7 years. So the property class life, if we go there, let's go back to 98. It's 10-year property class life, but it belongs to 7-year recovery period. So it's going to be, let's go to form 4562. So you'll put it in 5-year property. So the property class will be 5 year, and the recovery period, the property class will be 7 year, and the recovery period will be 7. So you will match both. Even though on that table they put it under 10-year property class, is not where you will put it, in my opinion. Because they have classification, you need to, to match your recovery to the classification. So we have, if you go to the instructions as well, I believe the instruction will have it on page 8 or 9. So recovery period, now let's go down to the regular one. So that's the classification, and that's the recovery period. So 7-year property for 7-year recovery period. So when you find, and that's under the general depreciation system. So the class life is 7, but the property class under GDS, the class life is 10 for the assets, but the property class under GDS is 7, and the recovery period is 7. So under ADS is going to be different. It's going to be the class life, but under GDS, the property class is 7, and the recovery period is 7. So I put the class life in my instructions here. That's the class life, but under GDS, the recovery period is 7, and the property classification is 7 as well. You put it under the property classification 7. So let's continue. So the asset is not listed in table B1. The business activity is listed in table B2, but the asset is not listed under that activity. So you use the class life and recovery period of table B2 of that business activity. So let's use an example of cash register. So you have a retail store. If you go back to table B1, cash register, if you look through table B1 asset list, you won't find cash register. So if you don't find the assets, they have calculator, accounting machine, adding an accounting machine copier. You know, they have those assets that you might think is closer to your asset, but it's not. Your asset is not really mentioned in table B1. Then you go to table B2 to look for your business activities. And we know as a retail store, we have our asset class is 57.0. So we look here, cash register is not listed either under the activity that is used in. Therefore, you use the recovery period of the table B2 under the activity that is using the assets. In our case, cash register using in a retail store of yours, which class asset is 57.0, will recover the cost, will have a recovery period of 5 years. So the recovery period under GDS will be 5. So on your form 4562, the classification year will be 5 year property, and the recovery period will be 5. So the class life is 9 years. The regular class life for that class asset class is 9 years. So if you are using ADS, it will be a 9 years recovery period, but under GDS it's going to be 7 years. So what are we talking about here? Let's go back. Is it retail store? Okay, asset is not listed in table B1, and business activity is listed in table B2, but asset is not listed in that activity. So yeah, you use recovery period from table B2. And what did we use? Cash register in your retail store, retail business. Cash register is not specified under that activity. You will use recovery period and recovery period and class life of that activity, and I believe it's 5. All right, let's go check again. So for retail trade is 7, no, it's 5. So that's what we'll use. Let's go back and let's check the class life there. The class life is 9, and the recovery period is 5 under GDS. And that's 5. Where are we? And that's 5 here. 5 recovery period under GDS. The asset is not in table B1. The asset is not in table B2, but your activities is. So you use the recovery period under GDS of that activity to depreciate your assets. So let's see if you have another scenario. And I think that's pretty much it. That's all the scenarios that you could encounter. So now that you found the recovery period, which will match the property class for GDS, you will go to Appendix A. Let's go back there to Appendix A. That will be on page 69. So you know you are using GDS. You will need to decide the depreciation method you want to use. You find the recovery period in table B1 or B2 for your assets. It's going to match the class, the asset class, and you'll decide on the convention depending on the quarter you place your asset in service, to be able to find the rate table to use. And when you find the rate table name, you scroll down to that rate table to use it. So I can use an example here to illustrate what we just talked about. Okay, we can first use the office desk that my computer is sitting on. I'm using the computer, and so to depreciate that computer, no, not the computer, but the office. Okay, we already covered the office desk. Really, so I think you got that point. So let's use it using another example. I have totes that I'm using to store our products that we sell at ninasoap.com, and those totes were placed in service in 2020. So therefore, I'm going to depreciating them for the first time in 2020. So my first instant, the number of years that I wanted to depreciate those assets is 70 years. But the reality is, on page 39, let's go back here, I believe it's page 30. Page 30, the short list of asset property class I could now find under 70-year. I could now find the totes listed in as 70-year property. And when I scroll down, they are not in 5-year property either. But based on how durable they are, I think they could last. My first instant was 70-year, depreciating them for 7 years. Use 7 years for recovery period. But is it really a 7-year property? Well, to find out, we will go to Appendix A, which will be, let's write 95. We'll go to Appendix B, Appendix B. Appendix A is to find the rate table. But we'll go to Appendix B and we'll look at Table 1 for the totes. And when I look at the 7-year recovery period assets, I'm not finding totes specified. And I can scroll up a little bit here. So the asset has to be specifically listed. So that's something you need to keep in mind. So I didn't find totes there. Save file desk. Okay. Under communication system is not. And I couldn't find it under, pretty much it's not listed on table B1. So I'll go to table B2. So keep in mind, we went through some scenarios, right? So you will scroll down. We are looking for the activities that is using the tote. We use the tote to sell natural products online. So that's a retail business. So we will scroll looking for our business activities. And the asset class is 57.0. Distributive trade and services, so retail trade. And it is listed, the business is listed, but the tote that I'm using to store the product is not. So the totes are not listed in table B1, they are not listed in table B2, but the activity is listed in table B2. Therefore, I will use 5-year recovery period to depreciate the totes. So on my form 4562, it will be 5-year property, the recovery period will be 5 years. So that's where they will go. Another example will be office desk that my computer is sitting on. Well, the desk was purchased when we started our business, our consulting business, Liberal Consulting. So it is a professional service. And the desk, so you'll notice that the desk is not specified in table B2, asset class 57.0, where the business is listed, is a professional service. The business is listed, but the office desk is not. So we go to table B1. Table B1, desk is listed in table B1. So desk is listed in table B1, business activity is listed in table B2, but desk is not listed in the list of assets under that activity. Therefore, I will use recovery period of table B1, which is 7. So I'm depreciating the desk using 7-year recovery. And so the first year that I depreciated, it was a 7-year property, the recovery was 7 years. So, and if we go back to the scenario that one is, it is the second, the third scenario. The asset is listed in table B1, the business activity is listed in table B2, but the asset is not listed under that activity. So we use table B1 recovery period. And the third is the scenario 4. Asset is not listed in table B1. Business activity is listed in table B2, but asset is not listed under that activity. So you use table B2 of that activity for recovery period. So that's how you will first, when you place an asset in service, you will locate the asset in table B1. You'll go look for your business activity in table B2, and you look to see if you have the assets specified in the list of assets under that activity to decide whether you should use the recovery period in table B1 related to the asset, or you should use the recovery period in table B2 related to the business activity to depreciate your assets. And then you go to Appendix A. Once you find the recovery period, you go to Appendix A. With the recovery period, the depreciation system, knowing that already, And if you record when you place the asset in service, you'll be able to decide what convention you are required to use and the depreciation method you want to use. You'll be able to find the name of the table that you will use, and then you scroll down to that table and find the recovery period the asset belong to, and you will copy the rates under the recovery period the asset is in to your depreciation spreadsheet, and you'll start depreciating. You'll be able to calculate the depreciation amount to claim on your tax return, and for the first year the depreciation deduction that you will claim on your 2020 form 4562. So having a depreciation spreadsheet, you'll be able to keep a good record of the assets when you purchase it, when you start using it in the business, and the type of depreciation method and table that you use. And once you found the rates, you calculate the deduction for every single of the years, and you have it in file. That way every year you know the amounts that you will use. So the depreciation deduction spreadsheet comes with a summary page, as well, in case you want to have everything in one spot after you calculate every single one on their own sheet. And a depreciation worksheet will work as well, but you have to calculate the depreciation deduction yourself. But it's very good to really track your assets so that you can depreciate, so that you don't get confused over the years. If you go back to the depreciation spreadsheet, once you calculate the assets and the basis for depreciation does not change, you use 100% in your business. Doesn't matter when you start using the assets, you know from the start when you will be done depreciating the assets, and the deduction is already calculated for you. So when you file your business tax, you just find your asset that you are depreciating and take the right depreciation amount for that year and enter that in your depreciation spreadsheet. And having all the depreciation calculated every year, for the assets you are depreciating that you have placed in service prior years, you have them in your record. You just go retrieve the amount that you need for the year you are filing for, and for the prior year, if you place an asset in service during the current year, then you are required to use Form 4562 Section B for the asset you placed during the current year. But for prior year assets that you are depreciating, they will go on line 17. So those assets that you place in service before 2020, those will go on line 17 of Part 3. And you have them already in file. As long as you don't change how you are using them, the basis does not change due to, you claiming casualty or death loss deduction, or you don't change using a personal and business, you use 100% business, the depreciation, the basis for depreciation does not change. The rate you calculate will be set, and you just claim your depreciation year after year. So it's very good you keep a good track of your asset and calculating everything right in advance. The first year, for all the years you are set on that asset, and keep a good record of your business asset, your depreciable business asset. Thank you so much for your time. Each time you place an asset in your business, please remember Appendix B to find the recovery period, and use Appendix A to find the rate table name and find the rate table to use to depreciate your asset. We do have all those videos in the playlist 2020 Form 4562 Depreciation and Amortization. By the time you watch those videos, you will have the tools you need to claim the right depreciation deduction on your business tasks. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all that subscribe to our channel. Thank you for all your comments. I'm Afiavi Ojune Liberman, creators of Liberman Consulting L.L.C YouTube channel, Liberman Consulting L.L.C podcast, NinaSoap.com our blog. We do have links to the publication 946. It's very crucial you access publication 946 to be able to use IRS rate table, unless you decided to calculate the rate yourself, which is doable, but you could use IRS rate table. And so far, as of February 2021, the depreciate the publication 946 for 2020 is not available. The latest version out there is 2019, so that's what we use. But you could check by the time you are filing your depreciation for the latest version they have out there. We do have links to IRS publication under free downloads on our website that you could access. And we thank you all that listen to our podcast. We thank you for reading our blog. We do have our online store, including LibreDownload.com, for spreadsheets, PDF, templates you need to successfully manage your money and your business. We have LibreOutlet.com for resale products, LibreLabel.com for custom apparels and stationery, and NinasSoap.com for natural products, including a soap made out of unrefined oil and towels made using natural fibers. Thank you.